With the state of superhero media being in a bit of a creative rut in the past 5 years or so, a lot of fans and casual audiences have become less and less interested in what's been put out, with pretty much only Invincible and The Boys being things that people seem to care about now. However, out of all of this, the one thing that's surprisingly been consistent is that apparently James Gunn can do no wrong when it comes to superhero stuff. With Guardians of the Galaxy standing as one of the best movie trilogies of all time, The Suicide Squad being a terrific reboot of one of DC's worst films, Peacemaker being a shockingly great action drama show, and now we can add Creature Commandos to this list of W's because, yeah, it was really good. While yes, this is another project focusing on a band of misfits learning to work together, it differentiates itself enough from both Guardians and Suicide Squad to be its own unique thing, in ways that are a little difficult to describe honestly, but if you watch the show, you will understand. It has a different vibe in general, being somewhat more serious or down-to-earth than those other two movies. Plus, with Gunn's proclivity to use licensed music, it was toned down a lot here, with songs being used pretty sparingly, or at least not going on as long as you'd expect them from his previous works. Probably one of my favorite aspects about the show is the animation, because to me at least, it looks great. There were so many scenes I could pause and legitimately see being panels in a comic book. The lighting, the movement, everything was extremely well done, and it gave this show a unique look that lets it stand out amongst its contemporaries. The character designs were especially great. Everyone looked different and interesting, from the hulking mass of Frankenstein to the neat steampunk aesthetic of G.I. Robot. Plus, a glowing skeleton and a lab coat, it just looks cool. Like, what else do I need to say on that? But those character designs are put to good use, since the characters they're used for are pretty damn great. The pacing really helps dispense their backstories to us very effectively, with certain characters being doled out over the course of an episode. Very similar to the Suicide Squad, pretty much all of these guys have some kind of tragic backstory that led to them being in the position that they're in. Little moments like this...
G.I. Robot would like to kill Nazis with you. Would you like to kill Nazis with G.I. Robot?
If I killed Nazis with anyone, it would certainly be you, G.I. Robot.
Go an extremely long way in humanizing everyone. And I don't know what it is about Gunn's writing, but he really wants me to feel bad for the animal characters, because why the hell did he have to make me nearly cry at Weasel's backstory? Like, come on, man! And others, like the brides, are way less sad and way darker, but still doing an effective job at getting you to understand how she got to where she is. On top of her being the only character that actually goes through some kind of character arc, which isn't a knock at the show, since I think most of the characters got enough development as is, and a season 2 leaves the door open for a lot more stuff to be done, but it does mean that the bride is the best character in the show. Sorry, I don't make the rules, but actually I take that back. G.I. Robot is here and he's kind of a based king.
To see if there are any known Nazis. If so, they will be dispatched of in short order.
The action scenes as well are pretty damn sweet, with a lot of cool moves, neat ideas, and a hell of a lot of violence that lends itself well to the mature rating, which I would say the show took pretty good advantage of, without seeming like it was putting in violent swearing and sex for the sake of it. I think of it in the same vein as the Suicide Squad, where it doesn't go overboard on anything, clearly being for a more mature audience while still being animated. Even the comedy was pretty good, since for the most part a lot of it is pretty dry and comes from certain actions the characters do rather than anything super highbrow. However, while I have done nothing but praise this show, it unfortunately dropped the ball in a couple ways. Interestingly, it doesn't fall prey to some of the issues that have plagued Gunn's previous works, like excessive comedy or being a little immature for its own good, but it does fall victim to some problems I wasn't really expecting to see in something Gunn wrote for personally. My biggest issues with the show arise when it gets to the finale, in which it feels pretty rushed. The best way I can describe it without spoiling it is that it felt as though Gunn had initially written the ending first, and then everything else. But not like working backwards from the last episode to the first, more like he wrote the last one and then worked on the first, hoping everything would connect naturally when he got there. Like at the halfway point in the plot, there's a twist that shakes up everything, and makes what the Commandos are doing 10 times more nerve-wracking. However, for some reason, Gunn decided to make it more confusing by topping that twist with yet another twist that undoes it, for no good reason other than artificially making the plot more complex. Throughout the show, there's this notion that an international conflict could break out if a specific thing happened, and it's pretty much reiterated multiple times in order for us to understand that this could be like World War III levels of bad. But in the finale, that thing that we've been warned about happens very nonchalantly and nothing comes of it. No consequences, no big impacts for the rest of the world, nothing. Again, it felt like an artificial way of trying to make the stakes seem higher than they apparently were. While as a whole, everyone was good, and there wasn't a single character out of the lot that I outright despised, there were a couple that were off. While I enjoyed Frankenstein's time on screen and how he interacted with Flag, he has little to no plot relevance, made extremely clear by the finale in which it was built up that he would have some kind of role to play, but then is quickly kicked out at the start of the episode and isn't seen again. Nina, while being sweet and the only character on the team without some amount of bloodthirsty tendencies, is a baffling choice to have on the Commandos. Like, yeah, she can breathe underwater, but yet the mission they go on is to a landlocked country, in which she goes underwater once, in the finale. Which, I've seen some people say that this was the point of her character, where she never had a chance in this kind of setting to begin with, and the circumstances that befell her are on people like Amanda Waller, and I can see that argument and understand the reasoning for it. I just don't really agree with that. Nina's written as almost nothing more than a character whose defining trait is that she's had a tragic life. Hell, all the Commandos were sent to prison for killing people and doing bad stuff, which was shown in their backstories, but in Nina's, she was the only one that didn't do anything and yet was arrested. It is made worse since her backstory is the last one, during the finale, meaning that we knew very little about her until the very end. Overall, I wasn't given any reason to sympathize with her besides the sole fact that she's had a shitty life, which wasn't enough for me, unfortunately. But with all of that being said, Creature Commandos is a solid show, and yet another example of James Gunn knowing what he's doing. Sure, the show starts to buckle under pressure by the end of it all, but everything before that is extremely solid. The story is good, the characters are likable, the action is exciting, and the animation is smooth. I'm glad it's gotten renewed for a second season because there is still a lot that can be done with these characters, and it really feels as though we're only scratching the surface with them so far. But that won't be for a while, with Superman and Peacemaker Season 2 taking up Gunn's attention. So until then, we'll just have to see what the new DCU has to offer us.